Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Donnelly, Manager of Webinars for Independent Banker Magazine. And on behalf of ICBA and Independent Banker Magazine, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You may ask a question at any time during the event by entering it into the Q&A panel. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the Q&A panel to alert us, and someone will assist you. You may download a PDF version of the slide deck by clicking on the drop-down menu labeled Event Resources, and you'll find that on the left side of your screen. Know that you can download those right from the platform without being disconnected from the webinar. Today's webinar, Boost Cybersecurity with Secure Digital Transport, is sponsored by Botdoc, ICBA's #1 recommended secure document transfer platform. Our featured speakers today are Carl Falk, CEO and founder, and Tracy Fox, Chief Revenue Officer for Botdoc. And with that, Tracy, you now have the floor.
Hello, this is Tracy Fox from Botdoc. I also have Carl Falk here, founder and CEO with me.
Hey, yes, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks, Janine, for pulling this together. And then we also have Jonathan Steenland on the call as well, as most everyone is a little bit remote. So Jonathan is our Chief Innovation and Security Officer. So we wanted to kind of get started here. What we're going to do is we promise this will not be death by PowerPoint. We're basically going to kind of give you an idea of kind of what's going on in the world, during COVID, post-COVID, some trends that we're already starting to see from the ICBA community banks that use our platform, and from some other larger banks and even healthcare providers as well. We're going to do maybe about 7 slides. It'll take maybe about 5 minutes, and then we're going to pull off a live demo. So you'll actually get to see the technology in action, and then we'll kind of summarize it and tell everyone how a lot of the ICBA banks were using it during COVID's, a lot of PPP loan usage, and we'll kind of wrap up that. So with that said, to kick it off, Botdoc is what we're fundamentally doing is we're transporting data and documents with end-to-end encryption. The novel part is we're doing it without PINs, passwords, logins, accounts, apps, or software to download. And our clients call us the secure FedEx of data. That's really the best analogy that anyone's ever given us. So if you kind of think about FedEx, they pick packages up and they drop them off. And when they give them to you at your front door, they don't care what you do with it. You can put it wherever you want. And they no longer want that package. So they relinquish custody of it, but they keep all the transaction history. So you know exactly who had it, where it was, et cetera, et cetera. So we do the exact same thing, just in the digital space. So if you kind of think about that analogy, it really helps the conversation today. So with that said, we kind of wanted to talk about the consumer. So before COVID, we had a consumer base, financial, healthcare, et cetera, that craved convenience. And Gartner put out a report not long ago. It said 89% of companies compete primarily on the basis of customer experience. And I think this is where the relationship angle plays a lot for community banks, because it is about that relationship, and the consumer knows you'll go above and beyond to do extra things to make their lives easier. If anybody on the phone uses or has used Amazon, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I know sometimes that convenience factor of having something in a couple of days and having the ability just to hit a button versus going to another website that may be a couple bucks cheaper and having to enter a credit card number and all that other information. Sometimes Amazon's a little bit more convenient, and I'll spend the money. So another report, this is all before COVID, was while 80% of companies believe they deliver a super experience, only 8% of their customers actually agree with that statement. So it means that companies' perspectives typically exceed what the consumer actually feels about the experience. And I think a lot of tools in the environment focus on the bank experience more so than the consumer. So with that said, if we look at what was happening during COVID, so we already had a consumer that craved convenience, ease. They were used to, maybe even just dropping in and being able to hand somebody documents and they took care of them. The consumer now has a taste of what the future is potentially going to look like. And I think we're going to see a lot of industries, obviously banking, where the customer is going to say, well, hold on, you allowed me to do all this stuff in my living room, sitting on my couch in my underwear during the shutdown. Why can't I do it like that now? So I think the consumer giving a taste of what this full potential digital experience was like is going to accelerate a lot of digital strategies for a lot of companies, banking and even outside of banking. So we kind of take all of that, but there's another factor that plays into all this. And that factor is cybercrime and cybersecurity. So if we're talking about before COVID, there are a lot of data points that were basically leading to the fact that cybercrime is increasing. It's not going away. The fact that it's the greatest transfer of economic wealth in the history of the world, and more profitable than all the major legal drug trade combined globally, really kind of puts it in a frame of reference. And then the FBI even reported during COVID, because the entire world was remote, and the workforce was remote as well as the consumer, that cyber attacks were up over 400% during this time frame. So we've got to ultimately what companies are doing to combat cybersecurity is they're putting more and more emphasis around that fact, because it's not going away. That's why a lot of banks use things like secure email, FTP transfer tools, fax still. You can't just text a picture to your banker of your driver's license. And there's a lot of compliance around that. So with that said, a lot of institutions are putting more and more security around everything, their people, their processes, and their technology, which is what they should be doing. But again, all of this security comes at a cost. And the true cost of all of the security that we have to put in place in the banking industry is not financial. The true cost is actually convenience. We're actually making business harder to do. So there's some trends. So if we kind of compile all this together, you've got a consumer that already craved convenience before COVID. And then during COVID, the consumer was given a taste of what a true digital future could look like. And the fact that they've had a taste of it means that they're going to crave that. So again, we're going to see a lot of companies shifting more momentum towards digital. Companies don't want to be caught off guard. The smart companies don't want to be caught off guard again. They're going to sit back and say, hey, how do we, in case this happens again, it may not happen for 10 years, but in case it happens again next year or in 2 years, we don't want to be caught off guard, right? We don't want to go through what we went through again. So how do we ensure that we can still have a digital environment that's secure, convenient, and remote? And that's really the big question. So at the end of the day, we kind of talk about like a child seesaw, and all of you face this. One side being security and the other side being convenience. And over time, as we increase security, what we're really doing is driving down convenience. And anytime we talk about this, whether the individuals are on the security side or the operations side, we usually have some people smiling because they said, oh my gosh, this is my weekly, if not daily battle inside of our branch or our group. Because at the end of the day, security and compliance says, look, if we have exposure or we're not doing something right, I'm the one that gets fired. I'm the one that gets dinged. And operations says, hey, I get it. But at the end of the day, if you make business any harder to do, we're not going to have any customers to do business with. So we see a lot of companies do this. Decrease security to increase convenience. And a lot of times, it's not that, hey, we're admitting we're doing it, but it's usually operations finds that unsecured technical workaround. because it's just easier for the customer. And we saw a lot of this during the PPP loan process. So there were a lot of banks who were thinking about using Botdoc, and it was right up against the wire. And they said, or even banks that reached out to us during the PPP loan process because they had heard how other banks were using it. And they told us, well, you know, hey, we're neck deep in the PPP loan process. We're not going to change our process now. We know we need it. And we had some banks say they took in thousands of PPP loans applications via unsecured email, and consumers were texting pictures of things because they didn't have a scanner, and it was just a mad dash to get stuff in. And I get it, right? That's super important because you've got to make it easy for your customers, especially when they're stressed like this, because if you don't take care of them, they're going to go to another bank that's going to do it easier, right? We saw a lot of banks actually say that Botdoc banks, they're using Botdoc, said that they actually stole business from other customers because the process they had in place that included Botdoc was much easier than secure email, fax, and it just made it a lot more convenient. So ultimately, this is what we did. We broke the seesaw. So we're using the highest levels of security while also increasing convenience factors, and we actually did it inadvertently. We were building something totally different years ago and actually had the need to do this. Of course, we said it was impossible, and we figured out a way to do it. So instead of boring you with any more slides, we're actually going to do this on this end. We're actually Tracy's going to show his screen. So we're going to show you guys the SaaS-based tool of Botdoc. So this is what hundreds of ICBA banks are using today, and thousands of PPP loans came in via this way during, over the last month or so. But we'll show you use cases on how it's being used above and beyond just COVID. So Tracy can enter so this is Tracy's screen, so he can enter my cell phone number or my email. And let's just say, he needed my ID from me. Tracy's entering a message real quick, and then he's just putting an internal note there so he knows. And then he's going to hit request. Now, as soon as he does that, now Tracy's mirroring my phone on his screen, so you guys can see I've got a text message here. So it says, Tracy Fox from Botdoc is requesting documents from you via Botdoc. Now, if this was a bank, it would say Susan Smith from XYZ Bank is requesting documents from you. So I'm just going to click on that link. And maybe Tracy's on the phone with me, and maybe it's pre-application for a loan. So maybe he needs an ID and then a basic proof of income so he can do a pre-qual before he's in our system. And then anybody that's on the call that is in mortgage or any type of lending knows that you always have to do some kind of follow-up. Once it gets into underwriting, hey, you know what, now we need to see this. Now we need to see, January's bank statements. Hey, you sent the wrong payroll report. Now we need to see this. So during that underwriting follow-up, maybe Tracy's on the phone with me, and then I get the text, and then maybe he needs my ID. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Add Doc. And then since I don't have a scanner in my house, I'm just going to say take photo or video. And then I'm just going to take a picture here. This is the Independent Banker magazine, the latest one. And then I'm just going to hit Use Photo, and it's going to start to secure that item. Now, let's just say, a lot of the consumer base uses Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive. What I could also do, let's just say I have my tax returns on my Dropbox account. So I'm just going to hit Add Doc. And then instead of take video or photo, I'm just going to hit Browse. And then, so I'm already in Dropbox. You can see here I can, grab from Google Drive, OneDrive, Cloud Drive, anything that I have on my phone already. And then I'm going to take a fake tax return here. and then it's going to secure that item as well. So in this scenario, let's just say it was my driver's license and a tax return, and then I'm just going to hit send finish. And then it reverts back to and then it goes to Tracy's digital business card here. And of course, what's great about this is a lot of banks like this because it's a digital leave behind of whoever they're doing business with. So let's just say that I did want to call Tracy, as I could just click on his number there and call him, or click on it and actually email him. But we won't do that for today. All right. So Tracy's now back in his environment. So he's got an email that said, hey, this phone number has sent you a Botdoc reply. And then here you can see in Tracy's Botdoc account, there's the image. So he's going to go ahead and open that up. The great thing about this is that when an image comes through in banking or any industry, there's really no need for a JPEG. So you can actually download it as a PDF or a JPEG if you wanted to. We won't do that right now. And then the PDF comes through just as if he had sent it over in a document. So it's just a blank document. All right, and then you can see there's some other information. We kind of call it, it's a little bit creepy to some extent, but it actually, for auditability purposes, it really helps. But you know the IP address and the state and city of where the item was grabbed from. So we've actually had some clients say, hey, if I grab an ID and a selfie from that person, and it's roughly the same time and date stamped, and it's from the exact same lat long location, can I do that? And we said, absolutely. And we've had some clients say, man, I could do some really interesting things if I know, if I can verify it's the person I'm actually doing business with. So we'll leave that for some other questions another day. So this is what we call a pull. So this is the ability to reach out and grab something from an external party and pull it back into the system. And a couple of things to notice here, even though I used my phone, and obviously I'm with Botdoc, but it did not access an app on my phone. It just accessed the browser that I always use, my default browser. So I didn't have to download any apps or any software to do business with Tracy today. Also, I didn't have to put in a PIN, a password, log into something, or create an account to some system I've never used before. So it's extremely easy for the consumer to use it because there's no tech support. There's no, hey, how do I log into this thing? Where's the app? Where do I go? Where do I go when I'm logged in? We've had extremely large clients of ours like Edward Jones come back to us and say, we've eliminated our tech support costs for solutions that we've used in the past once we implemented Botdoc. Because nobody's calling saying, how do I log into this thing? It's very simple, very easy to use. So also, that link that Tracy sent me, Tracy, if you want to go back to my phone real quick. That link that Tracy sent me in the text message, if I were to go back and click on it, it's no longer usable. It reverts back to this successful submission page. So each individual request is uniquely identified and a one-time disposable use by design. So it's no longer an access or a hack point, or it's not confusing for the consumer going, what link do I have to go back and use that you sent me 2 weeks ago? If you need something, you initiate a request and grab it. Now, also, for some of our clients that are very cybersecurity aware, that picture that I took through the process, if I were to go into my photo camera history, does not exist. This is the last picture I took, and it's not the picture of the magazine. So what we're doing is we're not creating residual copies of items. And that picture only exists in one place in the entire world. It's not on my phone. It's actually no longer in our transportation technology that delivered it to our SaaS-based tool, because once it delivers it to your account, it overwrites and deletes that item from the transportation technology. And it only exists in this system when you access it. So, so fundamentally, Botdoc is making it very convenient for the consumer to grab documents from them, not imposing anything foreign upon them, and making it much more secure in that environment. Now, this is what we call a pull. we're going to demo a push for you real quick. Excuse me, and Tracy's going to show that on his as an email. So both of these, a push or a pull, can be done via email or text. So this one, let's just say Tracy needed to send out some banking disclosures, final loan documents, something like that, or maybe it's you know, a final loan packet they need to send out for compliance reasons. So for our clients that ask for our massive compliance package, since the package is very large and obviously sensitive, we actually Botdoc these out to our clients. So we actually use the product ourselves. All right. So Tracy's going to send this thing to himself. And now you see on there was an option to include two-factor authentication. So in this case, what's happening, because we wanted to protect it, is when Tracy opens up this page, so it's already automatically sent him a PIN, and you can see it's kind of hashed out. It's telling him which email it went to. So Tracy's going to go back into his email here, and in a second or two, he's going to get a PIN. You can see there, he got the email, it was 2766. Oh. There we go. All right, Tracy fat-fingered the code. So you can see if somebody does enter the wrong code, it's going to kill the old one and actually issue a new one. So in this case, now Tracy can either download them individually, or he can download it as a zip package in case there was 10 documents in there. You could actually download all those, and he can store it obviously anywhere he wants. So this is the scenario of a push. So being able to initiate a document from the system and actually push it out to an external party. So now in this case, Tracy, so he's in his account, and we're going to go and look at this push. So obviously he sent it to himself, but let's just say he sent it to a client, and he doesn't know if they downloaded it or not. He wants to know. Well, with all our smart tracking technology that's around all the containers, is where if they even clicked on the email, they know, and Tracy knows if it was actually even downloaded. And he has a lat long, a city and state and IP address of where that actually happened. So again, you may not need all this information, but knowing exactly where it was downloaded or accessed sometimes is very important from a compliance perspective. And all that information stays in Botdoc for a very long time. Now, some of our clients, so this window for a push is open for 14 days. Let's just say it's a day or two into it, you notice your client did not open it yet or did not download it. You can kindly hit resend refresh, and they'll get another email. And then that will go ahead and try that, Tracy. And then what you'll see here at the bottom is if he scrolls down, is that was when it was resent. And then if the person on the other end clicked on it, downloaded it, that'll show up again. Also, there's a feature called terminate. So let's just say you fat-fingered an email or a cell phone number, or maybe maybe once they download it, once you want to kind of close out the session. So Tracy can actually hit terminate, and then it'll actually terminate that session. So it can no longer be accessed. So if Tracy were to go back to that original email, or even the second email that he got, and then try and click on that, so you can do that second one there. No, or that, either one.
Yep.
So if he tries to click on the link, so if Tracy tries to click on the link, it shows that this request has been terminated or expired, no longer accessible. So if Tracy were to, let's just say somebody fat-fingered an email, sent it to the wrong person, If you kill it before the data was actually downloaded, even if they clicked on the link, if you kill it before they download it, it's not a compliance issue because that information was never exposed. And now you can see, if Tracy, if you just refresh the screen, or just go out and come back in, there you go. So you can see here that once it was terminated, and then Tracy clicked on that link, and that's okay because nothing can be exposed after it was terminated. It no longer exists. So just some features and capabilities. So this is with Botdoc, a standard push and a pull. Now there's another way that Botdoc's being used as well, and this is the #1 feature for Botdoc, and this is heavily used during the PPP loan process, is each individual account holder of Botdoc gets a personal URL that's specifically connected to their Botdoc account. And these URLs are replacing fax numbers on email signature blocks and on websites because, let's face it, a very small portion of the world has access to a fax, but that small portion of the world that does have access to a fax, including the entire rest of the population, has access to the internet. So, so in this case, there's no fax number. So Tracy can send an unsecured normal email and say, hey, Carl, send me these 3 things I need to start your loan. Click on the link in my email signature block. So all Tracy has to do, or all I have to do when I get the email, is click on Tracy's email signature block. I'm going to enter my email or cell phone number, and it's going to self-initiate a Botdoc request to me that I can send Tracy anything I want. So this is kind of a set it and forget it technology. And #1 use capability. And I will tell you, a lot of banks, what they did, and we had several banks do this even before the PPP loan process, is what they do is they set up, they have all their typical loan team or banking onboarding, they all have individual Botdoc accounts. But what they do is they have a centralized account maybe for loan operations. And then during the PPP loan process, we saw many, many banks set up a Botdoc account, it was PPP at whatever. So they would basically send out this link to everybody and say, here's the documents, send it back to this address using this link. And that means it all came in through a centralized channel into one single Botdoc account. And then what those individuals did, Tracy, if you want to go back to the Botdoc account real quick.
Teams?
No, just go into my polls. No, into my polls. Yep. So in this environment, they could see all the requests that came in, and then you'll notice here, like the one that I sent in to Tracy just now is highlighted, and the reason that is because he never actually downloaded the document. So it stays highlighted until somebody actually downloads it. So that means that, hey, somebody's actually taken those documents and done something with them. But what they also did is they said, hey, I may have multiple documents from 719-210-4225. So Tracy can actually put that phone number in the search. And then pull up everything that came from that phone number. There you go. So everything that comes in from that specific email or phone number comes into, you can actually sort and filter by that. So it allows it, if a team is using one central Botdoc account, allows them to coordinate that. So what a lot of banks are using just during the PPP loan process is, if anything came in during centralized during in that one specific Botdoc account that maybe many people were working at one time, is they would consolidate that, get it over to the loan processor underwriter that was doing all the work, and then they would reach out via phone and then collect documents with their individual Botdoc accounts once they were assigned that file. So it works very efficiently, and I can tell you, and again, this is not just a PPP tool, you know, it's used for much, much more, but I can tell you that we had numerous ICBA banks call us. We had CEOs call us from ICBA banks thanking us for the technology, and that they actually stole business from other banks in their local area because their process, word got around that their process was much simpler than anybody else. I think that tells a lot about the strength of the technology. Slides, and then we'll be done here. And then we can open up for Q&A. All right. So, and then go back one more slide, Tracy. So on here, again, we'll give you an example. Here's a bank here in Colorado that uses Botdoc. Now, we still give them trouble because they still have a fax number, but they do have Botdoc in there. And you can see here where it says click here to send files securely. And their entire business and consumer and lending teams have this in there. And numerous banks use that. So that's the number one feature. We want to kind of give you a taste of what's coming. So what's new for 2020 is we have the ability to, this is the newest version of the consumer experience side of the house that allows you not just to push or pull, but to push and pull, actually get documents signed. So if you have a DocuSign account, it automatically integrates with that. And you can pull templates that you already have in your DocuSign account and deliver those in a secure session container. And then you can actually have the consumer chat back. So imagine a consumer texting to you and you verifying their account number and the PIN or password on their account, like mother's maiden name or whatever. So you can verify that you're who you're doing business with, and then saying, hey, now I need your ID, send it to me. Now I need this document. So maybe it's banking onboarding, right? Getting an ID, getting a signature from the consumer, and actually having them chat back with you. So again, it's providing a digital experience that's very similar to just as if they were in the branch. And then just to give you kind of a taste of what the future looks like, is that we've already been asked for many things, because a lot of companies are realizing that, hey, you know, if this happens again, or even now, like, we need the ability to do business just as if the person walked into the branch and sat across the table from me. Instead of saying, okay, hey, we're going to do this via email, I'm going to be on the phone, and then I have to send you some stuff via secure email, and then I got to help you figure out how to log into it. And then when that's done, I'm going to send you an email with a link from an e-signing capability, and then you need to sign that. And then on this end, I have to compile everything, put it together, and then I've got to reach out and maybe get you to fund the account or make your payment or whatever. So we're kind of getting this perspective now of what Botdoc looks like in the very near future, and it's the ability to pull off the same experience as if they were sitting across the table from you in your branch, but doing it when they're remote and doing it when your employees are remote. So to kind of give you a perspective of where the technology is going. So Botdoc pricing, we used to not talk about the API, but we've had some community banks actually start building stuff with the API. If you wanted to build this into an existing experience or existing tool that you already have, you can do that. And I can tell you that every major core knows about Botdoc, and it's just a matter of time until they build it in. But we know the cores typically don't move very fast. But in the near term, for the banks that aren't worried about building into websites or anything like that, we have our SaaS-based tool, and it's a per user per month scenario. It's $15 per user per month if paid monthly, $12 per user per month if paid annually, and there's some volume discounts if you're at 50, 100, 150. And like I said, right now the average bank, ICBA bank, is 23 to 24 accounts. Our largest one, I think, is 175 users. But it allows you the ability to use it when you need it. And you can have team accounts where, like I said, if you've got a centralized email for loan operations, taking in, initial documents or whatever, that's a good way to handle that as well as individual accounts. So a lot of ICBA banks, this is just a snapshot of a handful that currently use Botdoc. Any of our new clients typically say, hey, can I talk to some banks that already use it. We've got a list of them that used it before COVID, used it during COVID, and then are even now past the PPP loan process, but ramping up with Botdoc accounts because they know that, hey, there's a refi boom that's coming. Also, defaults are on the rise, and all the PPP loan follow-up too with payroll reports, et cetera. So again, this is just some of the ICBA banks that use Botdoc. And then our API, just because we're 6 years old, which is relatively new in the banking space, but you can see we have some very large users that use Botdoc, and not just on the financial side, also on the healthcare side as well. So we take security very, very seriously, and also the capability that we're providing, and making sure it's secure and convenient, and also supports a workforce and a consumer that's remote. So this is Botdoc. This is what we're doing. It's the future of the consumer experience and what's being called secure digital transport. And we're excited the fact that hundreds of ICBA banks are using the technology. We're excited about the use cases that came out of they're coming out of the shutdown, and also the PPP loan process. And we're excited to be a part of ICBA, and we want you guys to have really good technology that sets you guys apart from even some of the larger banks as well.
So with that said, Janine, yeah, I think that's the kind of the conclusion of our presentation on our end. I know that there's been some questions that have been accumulated, and so I'll kind of turn it back over to you to steward that process.
Great, thanks, Tracy. Okay, so you touched a lot on PPP, and this question may have come in early, but just want to make sure you have a chance to comment on it. How have other banks started using Botdoc since the COVID shutdown?
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way, whoever asked that. And they've been using it in multiple ways. I know that Carl highlighted a little bit how they were using it as far as putting that personal URL in the email signature block and or on their website for some banks. I can tell you this, that during the PPP process, that personal URL was by far and away the most popular feature. And they were taking that personal URL, once again, putting it not just in their email, but on the website. I can tell you this from some testimonies that did come in, that we had a bank in Washington State that expedited, and they're just a small bank with 1 or 2 locations. They expedited over 500 PPP loans in the first day with Botdoc. And the way they did it was they had a landing page for their PPP loans. They sent a welcoming email once they gathered a little information from that business. And then in the welcoming email, they actually had the URL right in that email that they were sending out. Hey, here are the 10 things you need. Here are the rules and the regulations. When you get all this together, send your application and supporting documentation into us via the link below. The coolest part about this, I know cool is probably not a cool business word, but I'm going to use it anyway today. They said that before COVID and before this process, and this is a bank, understand, that called us 2 days before the PPP loan process opened on that Friday, April 3rd. They called us on Wednesday, onboarded an entire bank team, and were accepting applications on late Thursday night, the day before, getting them ready already. So the beauty of that is that they said they were using secure email before, and they would always field numerous technical calls from the consumer or the end user. Now, how do I use this again? Now, I think I set up secure email before and I forgot my PIN, my password, and then once they get in, now how do I navigate this, et cetera, et cetera. And the coolest part was they expedited over 500 PPP loans day one and not one technical call the entire day. So once again, that's probably the number one use case within the PPP loan process. I will tell you this, the second is probably trailing documents. Now the PPP application is in, the initial supporting documentation's in, but now they need something else. Hey, you forgot to send me your payroll information. You forgot to send me this or that. I don't want to just make it about PPP. This is just a standard feature within the technology, whether it's a loan, whether it's a new account set up for a deposit account of some sort. It could be anything, but those trailing documents, most of the time in that underwriting process, was probably the second largest use case. But once again, it was definitely.
And I would say before the PPP loan process, just when it was just a shutdown, one of the beginning stages, we saw a spike in usage and new accounts being set up, and it was allowing, hey, look, I got to finish this loan, right? We're having to extend this rate lock because we, don't know how to do business, otherwise. And again, mortgages, car loans, et cetera, or even getting the documents in and then forwarding them over to the third-party underwriter. So a lot of use cases coming out of COVID.
Great. Tracy, you may have answered this question with the example you gave, but how hard is it to set up and start using Botdoc?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I did kind of overlap that because it's kind of all part of that same process. The quickest that we probably set up was that it was a bank in Washington. They were set up, but then they called us on Wednesday of PPP week.
Yeah, less than 20 minutes, they had the entire bank onboarded.
Yeah, we just did an onboarding call for the entire team all in one shot.
And I can tell you that typically we get the whole IT set up. It's typically a learning curve issue, and it's typically a big overhaul IT systems. You got to change things, and it's a pain anytime you use something new. And I can tell you, numerous banks, even CEOs calling us, saying that this is the easiest onboarding we've ever done. And we even had somebody from a marketing department, because a lot of banks, it was kind of all hands on deck, right?
Even the janitor.
It was like janitor, marketing department, HR guys. Hey, we need you in the room trying to figure out, hey, get all these loans through. And the one comment from the marketing lead, she actually called Tracy and said, hey, they gave me a Botdoc account. And she goes, I was a little leery at first because I haven't used it before. And she goes, once I got in and used it once, she goes, I felt like I had been using it for years. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. So I think that was a testament to that it was the really minimal training, if any. We've had some banks that don't even use the training. They just get their people set up and they're off and running.
Okay, next question is, how long do the documents stay in Botdoc?
No, great question. When we first built the technology and released it out to the market, there were people that asked, hey, I want it there for 2 days. I want it there for 10 days. Some people even wanted it long-term, very few, but at the end of the day, they didn't want that long-term liability of the package or of that data, which is a smart move, especially from a security perspective. But we actually put a default setting in the system at 14 days. Once again, we had it all over the board, and that was kind of the median or the average was, hey, after 2 weeks, I don't need it anymore. I have downloaded it, put it into my final system of record, and don't need it anymore. So 14 days is what we put the system to default set at.
Okay. So how are the users getting into the platform?
Yeah, so this one, I'm not sure if which user you're talking about. So if you're talking about the consumer, they don't need an account. So like when we did the demo with Tracy, and he Botdoc me, I didn't have to have an account to anything. If you're talking about the banking users, so it's a portal, so it's a website, a Botdoc website that you go to and you do log into. So the bank employee does log into it to retrieve the documents or initiate a request. So there is a portal that they do have to have a login to, but yeah, and really the fundamental difference to kind of think about this, depending on your question, if it was more related to to the consumer is Botdoc is really the difference between the term sharing and sending. A lot of people think, it's just semantic, it's the same thing, and they use them interchangeably, but it's really much, much different. So sharing in the traditional sense is two parties on the same system at the exact same time for the simultaneous exchange of data. It's a true collaborative environment. And that's great. It's needed sometimes, but over 95% of the time, when that sharing requirement was in place, like a login, you didn't need to share anything. What you really need to do is either just pick something up or drop something off. So sending is different now. Sending is removing one of those parties from that equation, and the party on the system can remote collect, like Tracy did with me today, or send to the other party without imposing that sharing requirement. So our challenge to every institution, regardless of the industry, is once they understand the difference between sharing and sending, we tell them, hey, you know what? You know your business way better than we ever will. If you go back and look at your people, your processes, and your technology, and if you're ever imposing a sharing requirement on a sending situation, first of all, you should be thinking about Botdoc, but importantly, you're spending too much for the technology that is doing the transport because it's over-engineered, too clunky for the job it's doing, and too expensive. Your business is not as secure as it could be, and you're putting too much friction between you and the consumer, so your business is not running as efficiently or effectively as it could be. So if you kind of keep that frame of reference in your mind, that'll help you identify, oh yeah, hey, these use cases we should probably be using a sending technology, not a sharing technology. So it's being able to transport with an external party without them ever having to log into the account. So the user accounts that somebody pays for Botdoc are just on the business side. You're not having to, since there's no accounts for the consumer to log into, you don't have to pay, there's nothing to pay for. You're just paying for the accounts you use on the business side. So great question. Thank you for that.
Great. And we do have some more questions here, but I want to let everybody know on this particular slide, you'll see that there is a live link there. If you do have questions, I know Tracy would be happy to take your questions, and you could click on that link. It'll open a separate window. And here we go to the next question. Is there a minimum contract length?
Contract length? No contract length. This is a SaaS-based tool, and it's a normal subscription, SaaS-based subscription model. So you can pay monthly or you could pay annually, but there's no long-term commitments. Our feeling is hey, if it's not bringing the value to your bank that it does, that you shouldn't be using it. And to date, we have had nobody that has either been gone through some kind of a POV, a proof of value of some sort, or whatever, or even been on the system as a paying customer, obviously, that has come back and said, hey, I'm done, or nobody's ever negated the system or pushed it away. It's actually the exact opposite. We've had a lot of testimonies and a lot of emails that, hey, I presented this to our lending department and they're using it, and now I can't pry it out of their hands. And now that they're using it, everyone else in the bank wants to use it. It's kind of the exact opposite. But once again, no long-term contracts.
Yeah, no long-term, hey, 2-3 year contract that we're going to stick you in. But I can tell you I'd say 95% of all our banks, maybe more, do an annual agreement just because it's cheaper per user.
Okay, let's take this one. How is your system set up so that it's secure?
Yeah, so anybody that's security related, and maybe the person that answered that is on the security side or the IT side. So everything we do, we run through Microsoft Azure, U.S. central location, so nothing goes outside the U.S. Everything is encrypted with AES 256-bit encryption, as well as TLS, transportation layer security as well, like the HTTPS, and it allows everything to be secured. Even if somebody somehow broke into our environment in Microsoft Azure, which is nearly impossible, all they would see was a bunch of encrypted gibberish because each request is encrypted differently by the application. So no request is sharing an encryption key with another one, and then once it's done, it's gone. So everything is very secure. And hopefully, by seeing some of the logos of the larger banks that are using our API to build into their environments, we've been poked, we've been prodded from a security perspective, and always pass with flying colors.
Great. I think we'll take one more, and thanks everybody for your great questions. After a document is sent via the push method, can a customer sign the document? Is that possible? And if they do they have access to those documents, or do the links turn into dead links, like with the poll method?
Yeah, so good question. So currently in our SaaS-based tool, so the page we showed you about the P2, that's the newest version of our technology, is not built into our, it's available via our API to build with, but it's not inside of our SaaS-based tool. We are building it in currently and be rolling that to some select banks to beta test here over the next couple of months. But once that is built in, yes, absolutely, you can actually push a document. They can sign it within that container, and then once the container goes away, so the first capability we bolted in as a signature capability is DocuSign. Now we're also looking at other ones like eSign Live, IMM, those, and as we get more clients asking for those, we'll build in those modules. But in that case, what DocuSign does is you always have to supply an email as well, even if you send it via text message. So even if they sign the capability inside of Botdoc, they're also going to receive a link from Dropbox with those documents. You can also then take that documentation, package it up, and send it back to them in the same container. But currently, in the current version of the SaaS-based tool, you cannot leverage the new P2 version, but over the next couple of months, you will be able to.
As Carl mentioned, we have some pilot sites this summer that will be going live with that signing capability within the SaaS-based tool. If you are interested in being one of those pilot sites, my email is right there on the current slide. Yep. Please reach out to me. We'd love to have you be a pilot site if you'd like to be.
Okay, guys, great session. I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. I especially want to thank Carl and Tracy for sharing their expertise with us today. Later this week, watch for a follow-up email. It will contain a link to the recording of today's webinar, and I know I saw an attendee ask about that. So in that follow-up email, you'll get the link. And for anybody who'd like to view this again, visit the On-Demand Event Center. It'll be there, but everybody who registered will get a follow-up email with that link. That concludes our webinar. Thanks again for joining us. Above all, stay safe.